Good morning, Mastermind friends. Hope you're all doing well. And today I have a special guest with us, Dr. Michael Pope, and he is in Kentucky and just a wonderful doctor with a fabulous practice up there. Dr. Pope, how long have you been in practice?
I've been in practice for over 31 years. Graduated in 1986.
So you know a little bit about what you're doing.
A little bit, but I'm still learning every day.
Exactly. And you have a lot of occlusion in your practice.
Yes.
And
Yes.
What courses did you attend for that?
I went through the program at the Dawson Academy, and I started really later, but started back in 2008.
Awesome. You've been doing this for a while. So your team came to the retreat this year, and they're just wonderful people. And you made the most awesome video, which was a hit on your Facebook page. That was great, wasn't it?
Yes, that was a lot of fun.
It was. The main focus today of what I invited you to talk about was your mission trips, because you're famous for that, actually. One of the other doctors that we know mutually has always told me about the mission trips that you do and just the generous heart that you have. And, you know, this is December. I really like to focus on something like this for our December Mastermind. The generosity that you have is amazing. And I'd like to hear, I'm going to ask a few questions about your trips. Like, I guess, first of all, where do you go on your mission trips?
Well, it varies from year to year. It seems like one opportunity will kind of lead to another. The first trip I made back in 1993 was to Brazil, out in Rio de Janeiro, and been to Guatemala, Russia,
Wow.
Thailand, Peru. But each trip sort of leads to another. And I've got a good friend that's a doctor friend. A lot of times he'll find where we go.
All right. That's amazing. How many times have you been? How many years have you been doing this?
Been doing it since 1993, and I've missed 2 or 3 years, but just about every year the goal is to take one of those trips every year. And I've missed probably, 2 or 3 years, but so there's been quite a few.
Wow. That's amazing. How did you get started? I mean, 1993, what were you thinking about? I want to go on a mission trip. I mean, how did that come up for you?
That's a good question. You know, I'd always sort of in the back of my mind thought that I wanted to be involved with medical missions from a dental perspective, providing that service. But I always thought I'd probably do it later in life. And in 1993, I was at a CE course actually, and a friend of mine, another dentist, we were rooming together at this course, and he said, "Hey, would you like to go on a mission trip to Brazil?" And I'd had it on my mind. I said, "Yeah." And it was with a physician friend of mine who's over my hometown where I'm from originally, and I signed up to go, didn't know anything about it, kind of had to plan and figure out how we were going to do things on our own. But had an amazing experience. It was life-changing, and sort of just been going since then.
Wow. You say life-changing. Tell me more about that.
Well, I'll tell you to kind of crystallize it. We were in an area of Rio de Janeiro. It's a gigantic city. There's just unbelievable poverty and violence and drugs in that area. And there's one area out there that's about 6 miles, probably about 8 miles. And there's 8 to 10 million people in that area.
Whoa.
It's hard to wrap your mind around that until you see it. But we were working in a little area within the area. And it was an area that in a typical small town would have probably 12, 15,000 people. But this area had 250,000 people, no health care, a lot of violence. I mean, I felt very safe because we were helping them. But I'll just share, it was a great week. But what crystallized, and I remember this to this day, is the first day I worked all day extracting teeth in an office. A patient was sitting in a chair, not a dental chair. I had a nurse from Lexington who was helping me, knew nothing about dentistry. I'd never done it. I spent actually at the end of the day, I was totally frustrated because I'm kind of type A. I've got a friend says I'm type AAA. So anyway, but at the end of the day, we had a share time. where we were sharing about what was going on, and they started out, the missionary said, well, we want to know if anything good happened with your all's part of the clinics. We had physicians, nurses, all sorts of things going on. And I remember I said to myself silently, well, we didn't have anything. I had a really terrible attitude, but you just can't wrap your mind around really where you are. And the missionary who was translating for me and helping me, he said, well, we had a good thing happen in the dental office today. And I remember inside I silently said, what? And I had a terrible attitude.
Yeah.
But he said, a man came in today who had been suffering with his teeth for months and months, and he had been praying to God desperately for months to help him with his teeth, and that we had answered his prayer. And I just, I didn't hear anything, and I just melted down inside and got a hold of myself. And I might add originally, we go work with missionaries, and I'm a Christian, and my whole purpose is to try to be God's hands, be Christ's hands and feet to people, and to serve them so that they, to meet human needs, but also to open the door for them to come to know the Lord that I know and who's been so awesome and amazing in my life. The greatest thing that's ever happened to me is my relationship with Christ. And so it's a double blessing to be involved in all those areas. But anyway, that moment after that first day just kind of, that sealed it for me. Nobody had ever told me that before in my office, that I'd answered the prayer.
Isn't that something? Yeah. Wow. We take it for granted over here, don't we?
Yes. And those people have no access to care there.
Wow. So is that why you kept going back, or?
Yes. When you see you make such a difference, and I could talk for an hour or two about just that trip right there. And you see the poverty people are living in, and understand that, we may work hard and all that stuff. And, in America, we pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, but we can't be responsible for where we're born. And, by the grace of God, I've been blessed to live here. But there's so many millions of people around the world. Really, about 5% of the world lives like we do. And so there's also a factor, that moment about that man who had answered his prayers.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming in these third world countries, the numbers, and you just feel like, how can I make a difference? And the thing I learned is, if you make just a difference in one person's life, that makes a difference to them. So you are trying to just dip out the ocean with a teaspoon, but boy, those dips that you make in those lives, it's huge, and it just has a huge impact. And so it's one of those things I can't not go.
Oh, I hear you. Wow. I could see that, where you feel like, well, gosh, there's so many. How do you feel like you're even making a difference with all that's needed? But then when you make that one person, and kind of like the acorn, how does the huge oak tree grow out of that acorn? Well, have you ever taken your team with you, or your family, or?
I've through the years, I had the various trips we've been on. I have taken team members on a couple of trips. I always, want them to feel welcome. At the same time, I never try to pressure anyone, to go. But I have taken team members, and it's been a lot of fun. And a lot of times people have to be at the right point in life, especially for moms, to go. Yeah. And I've taken my family. I have two boys. They're grown now, but I've taken them. I've been with them on trips, and my wife and I had the opportunity to go to Brazil actually one time. And we're looking forward to doing some future trips now that we're kind of empty nesters and getting to college, beginning to get that out of the way. We were talking even last night how we'd like to go together, but it's a tremendous blessing. And you bond with those people, you create lifetime friendships. And you get as much as you give. Right.
So you go back to the same places then?
Sometimes, been to Brazil a few times. The last 3 years we've been working with a Christian hospital in Africa. And that's been a tremendous experience. And I think we made a commitment for about 5 years, but you sort of go, each trip sort of leads to another. And I just try to make sure that I do like to make sure that I'm working with good people, and that so that what we're doing is productive, that it'll do what we want it to do. But like we've been going there, and I'm sure something else will open up after that.
I hear you. Okay. Well, that's great. So when you took your team, what impact did it have on them?
I know, just like the case that had the most, I had a dental assistant who's about my age, similar stage in life, and it'd been her dream to do that. And we went to Peru, and it was just lots of fun. It just had a huge impact on her. Saying we were up in the Andes Mountains, and just being able to help the people, and she just had a real heart for it to start with and wanted to do it, and it creates a bond. I'd love to take my whole office, but that just it doesn't. It's hard for that to work out, but it just was a tremendous thing. It was a great thing, and we grew closer as people, and in the office, it just it's a camaraderie. Her pictures from that are still on her computer up there, and it's just it does create a bond there. That's a good thing.
And that's, that I think part of our challenge in leadership is the personal growth of our team members as well as the professional growth. And I think one of my mantras is, I say all the time, is personal growth precedes professional growth. And something like this, a mission trip, I know my daughters, I have 5 daughters, and they all went on mission trips, and I always loved it when they were teenagers, sending them on mission trips, because they'd come back so grateful for their bed, for their bathroom. It's a great wake-up call for them.
And I might add, my team has a service heart. One of my front desk lady, Rebecca, she started a toy drive on Facebook and in the practice, and just this past week took a carload of toys down for kids. And last Friday we spent the morning, we worked with the school next door, but we spent the morning doing free checkups, free cares for low income, uninsured working kids. That's a population nobody's helping in this country. Wow. So we did checkups on those kids, and we'll spend the spring semester treating those kids, giving them the treatment they need. We just kind of work those in at the office, but that's a mission project, and they all come in, volunteer their time to do that. And so there's a lot of things you can even do here that are mission and service minded.
Absolutely. I mean, you're exactly right about that. Especially where we live, parts of the country, there's lots of poverty. We don't have to go overseas to find it. But what is a typical mission trip? Like, how long are you usually gone? How much does it cost?
We usually try to keep it to a week, 10 days. Now, if you get heading a long way east and west, I know one time we went to Thailand. It's 12 hours difference. Africa's about 7 hours. That ends up taking closer to 10 days to 2 weeks, and you do have to have a couple of days to recover. I do. I would not want to be in the office after coming off that trip. But we generally try to keep it to about a week, because, healthcare people you've got nurses, physicians, also pharmacists. People are using their vacation, and and so we try to keep it to right at a week, 10 days. A lot of times we'll leave on Friday and get back the following Friday or Saturday. That way you've got an extra day or so there to recover. But, cost varies, but these are not real expensive trips. You're not staying in 5-star hotels, and it's a fascinating, but you're staying on the cheap. The biggest expense is your plane tickets, your travel. Usually in-country expenses are very inexpensive. What's good is, you're kind of roughing it, but you're going to serve and to show love to people, but it's a fantastic cultural experience. But the cost can vary from, some trips we've done for less than $1,000. Seems like the Africa thing is closer to a couple $1,000. By the big expense is the airfare. Right.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, what about health concerns? Like, I guess you have to get immunizations and things like that, but you don't want to go into a diseased area
Exactly. And what you want to do is just and I would advise anyone, if they're doing this, there are a lot of travel clinics that are in most larger cities,
Uh-huh.
and you can call them up. The big thing, like going into Africa, you got to get a yellow fever vaccine, but most of the stuff you have to take, uh, we already have it anyway. I think you have to get a typhoid vaccine, and, that's
Yeah.
not too bad. But a lot of the stuff we already have. You want to, if you're going into a malaria area, you want to consult your physician, and there's anti-malarials, and doxycycline is actually a good one. But you need to consult your physician to do that. And there's some things you can do. A lot of places people will kind of, for stomach bugs, which is always an issue. You want to make sure you get the facts about how to handle, like, don't eat washed vegetables, but you got to be a little diligent about that. Some people are really predisposed to it. A lot of times if we're in a bad area for it, we'll take
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of Cipro kind of prophylactically each day as it really is helpful. But there's a lot of things you can do. And then, we use precautions in Africa. It's a little bit more of a concern for HIV.
Mm-hmm.
And we used a pressure cooker, but there's a lot of innovative things. And if anybody's going, I'd be glad for them to contact me, and I could get into that more detail for them.
Yeah. And then also the security these days with terrorism, and
Yes.
ensure you're going to a safe place.
And I tell you, exactly, I don't feel led, and I don't feel led to go to on a suicide mission, so to speak. At the same time, my faith is what drives me in this. And sometimes you'll go into some areas where there's a little bit of concern. And again, we don't intentionally go into a dangerous area. And
Yeah.
you're always going at people's invitation.
Oh.
And there's two things. First and foremost, the safest place you can be is in God's will. And if you know you're being called to it, and going into these areas, it's a little bit dicey, but that's where faith comes in. And I always rely on the Bible verse, Hebrews 11:6, where it says, without faith, it's impossible to please God. And so I think it does require some faith, and you want to use prudence and be safe and all that stuff. But if you're working with good organizations and good people, I trust them. But above all that, trust the Lord.
That's right. Amen. So what are some, can you name some organizations that are really good that you've been with, or you like?
Exactly. Now, for example, like in my case, I'm Southern Baptist, and so most of the trips that we do will go through will be under Southern Baptist International Mission Board. So we're working with missionaries, they're vetted people, and we try to make sure we're working with good missionaries, and they have insurances and stuff that are available. Like, for example, you can get insurance. It's very inexpensive for an air ambulance. If you're in the hinterlands of Africa, there's an airfield there, or South America or something.
Oh, right.
That you can be air evac'd back to the United States if something really bad happens, bad accident or something. There's a lot of things you can get. A really good organization is the Christian Medical Dental Associations. They're headquartered in Bristol, Tennessee, but the CMDA is an outstanding organization. Matter of fact, last Saturday I had lunch. My wife and I had lunch with a fellow dentist and his wife, they've been on the trip with me to Africa the last couple of years. We've gone together, great friends, and he he's retired, but he's teaching at the University of Louisville Dental School for a few years. He's a great guy, but they took a bunch of students to Ecuador last year. They're going to do it again here in just a few months. And they went through CMDA, and he spoke very highly of them, but they are a great organization. And
they are great. I've been up there actually, and met some of them. I toured their facility. It's amazing. And is it Dr. Samuel that you're talking about? Maybe not. But anyways, Molind, Molind. He's a great guy.
He's there at, I think he's a retired oral surgeon in that area.
That's
and
right.
He works a lot with CMDA. I've spoken with him.
Yeah.
But CMDA, they run really good trips. Things are done very professionally. Things are planned out well. And that is, all things being equal, unless you have a close friend or a direct contact that can, help you get hooked up with somebody to take one of these trips, the CMDA is probably the first place I would start. And they have trips all over.
Oh, nice. That's a great one. Okay, I agree with that. Yeah, they're a really good organization. Okay, so If someone is thinking about going and they wanted to talk to you, would you be okay with that?
Absolutely. I'd love to talk with them.
Okay. What would you like to give out an email address or your phone number?
Yeah, you can. I tell you what, let me give you my office number, and it is 606
Okay.
678 0874.
Okay. So it's 606-678-0874.
Yes, and they could just make sure they just leave a message. They're a dentist interested in doing a mission trip, and just leave a contact number if they want to, leave a cell number, and I'll give them a call on my cell phone after work or at a convenient time for them. But I would love to discuss that. And there's a lot of little tips and stuff we don't have time to get into today, obviously, but there's a lot of information I think that'd be helpful.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience. I always admire doctors who go overseas and do things like this. And then again, like you said, doing things right here in our areas as well. So being charitable and giving on purpose, it's good for your practice. It's good for your team, but like you said, it's part of our faith of being charitable and, being a good Samaritan in lots of ways. So thank you, Dr. Pope, Dr. Michael Pope in Somerset, Kentucky. Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing. And I hope that you'll be hearing from a few doctors, or they may contact me as well on how to get in touch with you and take some trips.
You're welcome, Paula, and it's great to visit with you today.
All right. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.